Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to Japan once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel quite a few times before. Now, I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years. They are still a relatively new addition to the Japanese beer scene, but they've built up a very good reputation for themselves, and they're one of the Japanese breweries that I would highly recommend you check out should you get the chance. But if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, although they've been producing a lot of different kinds of IPAs in recent times as well, like West Coast IPAs, black IPAs, cold IPAs, you name it. And I've also noticed that they've been experimenting with quite a few different styles recently. I've seen lagers, imperial stouts, and also some kind of sour beers from these guys too, so perhaps it's best to say that this brewery is very well rounded these days. But the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I've tried from this brewery quite a few times before. It's one that I know they can do very, very well, and I've heard very good things about this particular beer. So needless to say, I'm very, very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we're going to head over to Japan like I said. We are going to go to Shizuoka Prefecture, which is a little bit to the kind of southwest-ish of Tokyo, right on the edge of Mount Fuji, and to be specific, we are going to go to Mochimune City, Mochimune-shi as you would say in Japanese. So this is yet another beer from the wonderful West Coast Brewing. It comes in at 9% ABV, a New England Hazy, Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA, and it's called Endgame Magic. So yeah, at 9% ABV, I would still classify this one as a New England Double. 10% for me is the borderline between the double and the triple IPAs, but regardless, you know, it's an Imperial Hazy IPA, that is the main thing, and this is a style that I know West Coast Brewing can do very well. But it's another beer that I picked up at the wonderful Out of the Brew in Central/Shunwan over on Hong Kong Island. They seem to get the West Coast Brewing beers in quite regularly, and if you are particularly interested in Japanese craft beer, then this is one of the breweries that I would highly recommend that you check out. These guys are doing some awesome stuff, and Japan, generally speaking, has some very good quality craft beer these days. If you want to learn more about that, do check out my friend Nevitt Reagan over at Japanese Craft Beer Reviews. I'll try to remember to put the link to his channel in the video description below, but he reviews a lot of breweries from all across Japan. But yeah, let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. Endgame Magic, 9% New England Hazy, Imperial Triple IPA from West Coast Brewing in Mochimune-shi, Shizuoka Prefecture over in Japan. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from West Coast Brewing before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and do remember that you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries as well. You can go into the channel homepage, of course, and search for beer using the geography tagging system. Just put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, check out the playlist of beers from different countries, as I said. But yeah, there are some very interesting things on the channel these days. Do check out my friend Nevitt over at Japanese Craft Beer Reviews for a more in-depth look at the Japanese beer scene, and you can also check out my friend Jordan over at Jordan Outside Insider in Japan, or Jordan in Japan. I forget what he's naming his channel these days, but he's got some very interesting videos both on Japanese culture, and he enjoys a good beer as well. He's been in a few of my videos too, so check out all the links in the video description for you below. But let's go on to the brewery history section of this video then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about West Coast Brewing. So West Coast Brewing, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Mochimune City in Shizuoka Prefecture in Japan, right next to Mount Fuji, and this brewery was founded back in 2019 by Derek Baston, who's originally from Seattle in Washington over in the US Pacific Northwest, and in a previous life he was an architect. So Derek originally came to Shizuoka back in 2003, and he would often visit different breweries during his trips home to the US, and he said that he'd always been inspired by the craftsmanship that went into these American West Coast craft beers, and he wanted to bring some of that back to Japan with him because he felt there wasn't too many breweries doing this at the time. So apparently the idea to found his own brewery can be traced back to 2014 when he was designing the Shizuoka distillery for Gaia Flow, who have facilities all over the place, but this was his first real look inside the brewing and distilling world, and it inspired him to go and visit other breweries and distilleries and to talk to those who were operating inside the industry, and apparently doing this made the whole process of starting his own brewery seem a lot less daunting. So first off, he founded a bar in Shizuoka called 12 to test the water and see if the types of beer that he wanted to brew would be a hit, and after a little while it soon became very clear that they would be, and so this gave him the green light to go with his brewery venture. So they found a premises in an abandoned tuna processing factory in the Mochimune marina, and they renovated it and converted it into a brewery. So the brewery at the start was equipped with a 10 BBL system, which is around 1600 litres per brew, and they've had 10 fermentation vessels and 2 bright beer tanks, and from what I understand they were producing between 12 and 20,000 litres per month. And the 3 brewers are Satoshi Miwa, who is from Japan, he's the brewing manager. Then they have Cedric Mel from France, and also Grant Scholler from the US. They've expanded this facility quite considerably over the years from what I gathered, and they've got their beers out there a little bit more, started exporting them and getting them further afield across Japan, and they've been doing very, very well. They did of course make their name with the New England Hazy IPAs, but in recent times they've been working on their barrel program and producing quite a few different styles as well. So the brewery's mascot is the Hop Dude, which you can kind of see on the artwork here. We'll take a closer look at that a little bit later on, but that the artwork that you see on these beers is designed by Simon Henshaw, who I believe is based in Manchester, and he's been involved with a few other breweries I think too. But over the first few years, as I said, they leaned heavily towards brewing IPAs, but they've been doing other different things recently. They've been opening up a number of bars and tap rooms as well. This includes Bao, which is a gyoza restaurant, 12, which is the original facility, it's an izakaya, number 3, which is a bottle shop, and all 3 of those can be found in Shizuoka City, Shizuoka-shi. They've also got the Oasis Bar in Hamamatsu, and then Umeda 1, which is a bar, and then Dark Lab, both of which can be found in Osaka, and I've visited both of those. Dark Lab has some really nice food actually, and Umeda 1 is a nice place just to kind of hang out. It's a little bit difficult to find though, I would say. But yeah, as I said, these guys are one of the Japanese breweries that I would highly recommend that you check out. These guys, and Uchu in particular, have made a great name for themselves when it comes to the New England Hazy IPAs. But as of March 2025, when I'm filming this review for you, they've produced 440 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. But yeah, that is everything I can tell you about West Coast Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a wee bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a wee look at the beer itself. So as I mentioned to you earlier on, this one comes in at 9% ABV. It's a New England Hazy Imperial Triple Double. As I say, debatable regarding the ABV in this one, but it's a New England Hazy IPA nonetheless. This one is hopped with Citra, Nelson Sauvin and Galaxy. We know these hops quite well. Citra is of course American, 14% alpha acid, lots of juicy mango, a little bit of peach and a lemon limey character. Nelson Sauvin is your original New Zealand high alpha acid hop, 16% alpha acid and sort of white, green, grapey, gooseberry type flavours. Then Galaxy is Australian, 14% alpha acid, quite a lot of pineapple out of it, but a bit of a lot of juicy mango as well in my experience. But this kind of trinity, if you like, of hops is a very well-known mixture, if you like. So I'll just like to have a wee look at the artwork on this one as well before we open up. There you can see the Hop Dude is doing his magic or sorcery there. I have to say I do like the West Coast Brewing artwork that goes onto the beers. You can see plain silver top on this one. This one incidentally is a half-litre can actually. I paid about 100 Hong Kong dollars for this, which I think is about 2,000 Japanese yen. In Japan itself you would pay maybe about 15 or 1600 yen for one of these beers these days. You know, the Japanese yen is quite weak just now, so ingredients and things are getting more expensive for them, which is worrying. It's a worrying thing when it comes to the Japanese economy, in fact. But yeah, you know, when you think about that, it's only about maybe 30% markup for this beer here in Hong Kong, which is pretty decent for me, in honesty. But yeah, it kind of goes to show you, it makes me think that the Japanese breweries might be struggling a little bit financially and stuff, but that's another story. But like I say, 9% New England Triple IPA, this one. All of these beers actually have a little bit of a story behind them, and I did get a translation of the story here. So let me just bring that up for you again. Translate section to English, and here we go. So this is directly from the Untappd, kind of the Untappd page for this beer, and it's translated into English. So it says, it's a legend from many generations ago. After all the battles, he finally gets his hands on Endgame magic, an ancient magic that is said to have been cast by Hop Oracle, the founder of Hopdude. What the alchemist has acquired are amazing hops that emit mysterious glow in the dark of night, possess the power of spells, and defeat evil. The impact of TDH, 3 Steps Dry Hop, completed with magic. In this work, although the dry hop variety remains the same, the composition is a mix of Nelson Sauvin PM16 in addition to Nelson Sauvin CGX1, hops that have concentrated lupulin, the source of aroma flavour, using hop processing technology at ultra-low temperatures. 2 among the freestyle hops, Nelson Sauvin, owned by West Coast Brewing. This is the earliest hop harvested. It is characterised by a strong, refreshing aroma and flavour. It begins with a glassy impression, followed by a light and gorgeous aroma reminiscent of tropical fruit, citrus, and a reassuring body. Like the aroma, it has a mellow and sweet flavour with a rich fruitiness and well-balanced bitterness. Smooth. So it seems to be I think that's maybe a mix of the blurb at the top and then the actual technical aspects of the beer. If we have a little look at the actual page on the West Coast Brewing site, it does say here that it's Galaxy, Citra Cryo, Nelson Sauvin PM16, Citra, and Nelson Sauvin CGX. So not any mention of Citra and Galaxy in the kind of blurb part of the beer on Untappd, but it is mentioned on the West Coast Brewing website, which I'm guessing is probably the most reliable source. So yeah, we'll just see how this one turns out. But anyway, let's go on and get this guy out and into the glass and see what it's all about. I'm quite curious to try this one. So, oh, it got a little bit excited there. It nearly exploded on me. But yeah, let's put this out into the glass and see what we have here. Yeah. Oh, that does look nice. This one I think is pretty fresh as well. I've got maybe about 75% of the beer out and into the glass there. So yeah, anyway, so before the head disappears on this one, you can see that the beer is poured with about a 1/2 to 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head. You can see that the bubbles on this one, they're kind of smaller toward the surface of the liquid, but a little bit more soapy the further up that you go. And I would say the colour of this one is like quite a rich mango juice yellow colour. And as I've always said, I like comparing the colour of these New England IPAs to different fruit juices, because that's really just what they remind me of. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, the length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise and thus you get a dark colour of beer. Any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect that colour as well, but you don't often have to care about that when it comes to different kinds of IPAs. In terms of the level of haziness in this one, it's not the soupiest and gloopiest 9% New England that I've come across before, but remember, the level of haze in these beers depends on the oak content and wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. That can vary from beer to beer and brewery to brewery, of course. Not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one, but all in all, this beer does look pretty much as you would expect of a New England hazy IPA. So yeah, let's move on from the appearance section of the video and go to the aroma section, and that's something that I always do enjoy when it comes to West Coast Brewing, because these beers can be quite different actually. Ooh, yeah, that smells pretty nice. And this one I think is fairly fresh. I think this is about 2 months old at the time of drinking. So it's not as fresh as you're going to find in Japan, right enough, but it's still in pretty good condition actually. Yeah, so for me, the aroma of this one's actually really nicely rounded, and it feels very familiar, probably because of the Citra, the Galaxy, and the Nelson Sauvignon in this one. This is a combination we've had before. But yeah, as I've often said, when it comes to New England IPAs, there's 6 kind of elements you should think about when it comes to the malty and yeasty side of the beer. You've got the kind of farmhousey yeasty side of things and the rye leaning grainy kind of character. Those two elements are a little bit more common in New England brewed New England IPAs because the style started as the kind of farmhouse type IPA, but as the style has moved elsewhere and evolved, the focus is more on the kind of barley malt bread, the wheaty bitiness, the oaty creaminess, and also the sweeter side of things. To me, this one comes across as a nice balance between a couple of those latter ingredients that I mentioned. It's got a nice little bit of wheatiness to it, there's some oatiness in there, the barley malt bread, and just a little touch of sweetness. The green component's quite smooth and quite oily, which is probably due to the presence of the cryo hops in there, and the fruits are very nicely balanced as well. But let's just break that aroma down then and describe it for you a little bit more in depth. So yeah, for me, the backbone of this beer, you've got a lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust coming out of this one. So yeah, that's in there. There's a little touch of woodiness, a little bit of Jacob's cream cracker. These are elements that you always pick up from these beer styles, but the breadiness that comes out of this one is actually slightly sweet in a sense. I'd be very curious to know where they're getting their malt from, if it's from North America or whether it's from Europe. It could even be Australia as well, right enough, and New Zealand too. But yeah, the backbone of the beer, you've got fresh white bready bread crust, a little bit of wood, a little bit of cracker. There's a little touch of a kind of sweeter wholemeal brown bread in there, some fluffier fresh white bready character too, but you can smell the denser wheaty white bready note as well. That gives you a little bit more bitiness at the back of the nose, but yeah, so there's that denser wheaty white bready character in there, which in all comes across as quite smooth, which makes me think it's North American wheat in here, but the wee bit of bitiness at the back of the nose could be European wheat as well, who knows. But the oatiness in this one is quite nice. Now, as I've often said, when it comes to New England IPAs, the oatiness can give you a rough idea of how fresh your New England IPA is. Essentially, the creamier the oats smell and taste, the fresher the beer is, the drier they are, the older it is. With this one, you can smell a bit of the creaminess, but the dryness is starting to come out. So that's why I say this one is maybe about 2 months old or so, because that's when you start to get that little bit of dryness coming out. So the oaty character is quite present in this one, or noticeable I should say. Then on top of that, you've just got the little bit of sweetness coming out as well. There's a bit of that Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotchy note coming out of the beer, which is of course the alcohol. You'd expect that when this thing is 9% ABV. There's a wee bit of McVitie's digestive biscuit in there, and you've also got that little bit of a kind of Skittles type aroma coming out of this one, or haichu if you're talking in the Japanese context. It has that little bit of kind of candied, fruity kind of character coming out of the yeasty notes of the beer as well. But yeah, aroma wise, the malty side of things in this beer is pretty nice, and the more that you smell of it, I think you get more of the kind of bitey, wheaty character coming out of the beer. In terms of the yeastiness of this one then, the yeastiness comes out of the back of the nose of course, and it's mostly white bready. There's a little touch of like a brown bready character to it, but yeah, there's a wee bit of brown bready character in there, but yeah, mostly white bready, and you've got a little bit of that kind of fresh white bready bread crust coming out of it as well. But yeah, the malty and yeasty side of this one is quite nice. It leans more toward the wheaty side of things, but yeah, you have got a bit of that barley malt white bread and the kind of oatiness coming out of it as well. So some really nice stuff to the malty and yeasty backbone of this beer. So let's go on to the hoppy side of things then, the green component first. As I've said here in many New England IPA reviews, there are 3 types of hoppings that you can use when it comes to brewing your IPAs. You've got early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of your wort boil. That gives you mainly bitterness and a deep dank green component in terms of flavour and aroma. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place within the latter half hour of your water boil. A little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour aroma, and it gives you a very bright green component. Dry hopping, which takes place after the water boil is complete, and that's all about flavour and aroma, and again that gives you a very bright green component. New England IPAs tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping, which is why they're softer and more kind of juicy, if you like, whereas West Coast IPAs use all three, and the early addition hopping dominates, of course, and that's why they are more oily and kind of bitter and things like that. For me, the green component in this one is quite smooth as well, because you've got cryo oil and stuff involved in here, which kind of puts the stuff, you know, just smoothens the whole thing out. But you do have a really nice green component to this beer. There's a little bit of earthiness in there, some nice woody character as well, but for me it's very floral, like quite a bright floral aromaticity, and some really nice kind of zesty grassy character coming out of it as well, but very smooth, but still has that little bit of pungency to it, which I certainly quite like. So yeah, let's round off the aroma then with a wee look at the fruitiness of the beer. So for me, the fruity side of this one, it's pretty much what you would expect if you know these hops. It really leans toward that tropical side of things. There's a good little bit of peach in the top there, but not too pungent. A hell of a lot of juicy mango for sure. There's some passion fruit underneath there, which is going to, you know, the mango and the passion fruit is going to come from both the Galaxy and the Citra here. But yeah, a little bit of apricot, pineapple-y notes, which I think is most likely to come from the Galaxy. And then yeah, you get that nice white green grapey gooseberry type note, which is all the Nelson Sauvin. And I think the more that you smell of the beer, the more that you get the the more that you smell of the beer, the more that you get the that kind of Nelson Sauvin white green grapey note coming out of it. It really is very, very nice. Yeah, all in all, the way that that goes together, I think is nice. It's a lovely aroma, this one. So as I always say, take a little bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is about time that we have a taste of this one and see how we go. So yeah, this is the Endgame Magic, a 9% New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA from the wonderful West Coast Brewing in Mochimune, Shizuoka Prefecture over in Japan. Let's get stuck in there. Slanja, skål, cheers. Ooh. Once again, just a very, very solid beer from these guys. Very smooth, very juicy, slightly creamy New England triple, this one. You can tell that it's not in its absolute prime, if you like. I don't know if it has a canned on date or anything like that. It says that it was packaged on the 12th of February, so we're drinking this beer actually at just under 2 months old. I would have thought it was at least 2 months old, in all honesty. So yeah, this one could just be a little bit more barley malt leaning, and that's kind of what's given it the slightly bigger dryness there, because usually in a New England IPA, as it gets older, you feel the kind of you know, they just get a little bit drier almost. So it's quite interesting that this one feels like that at about, you know, 6 to 7 weeks old. But regardless, very, very nice New England triple, this one. And yeah, it's one of the more barley malt leaning ones I think I've had from these guys, in honesty. Although if you take a bigger gulp of it, you will get more of the wheat and the oat out of this one, but a very smooth, kind of creamy, and it's well balanced in its malt base. And you get a lot of the softer, juicy notes out of this one, and the green component, of course, is oily because of the use of the cryo and things in it as well. So yeah, good stuff from West Coast Brewing once again. Let's break the flavour of this beer down then and describe it for you more in depth. We'll go to the middle third of your palate then with this beer. So the backbone is of course that lovely soft fresh white bready bread crust, As you move further forward on the middle third of your palate, you get the wee bit of woodiness in there, then you get that layer of Jacob's cream cracker, which I very often talk about, and you can feel a nice layer of a sort of wholemeal brown bready character in there, and you can feel the beer does get that little bit drier into the aftertaste as well. But above that, you have a more kind of fresh, fluffy, white bready character coming out of this one, which I think is really, really nice. So yeah, that fluffy white bready character in there. It's actually a little bit drier. I mean, I think this, I've got a feeling this is European malt that's in here just because of the level of dryness that it has. And of course I reviewed, just before filming this one, I reviewed an American beer, and of course their malt I think is a little bit kind of smoother in a sense. So yeah, I've got a feeling this is European malts in here. So that fluffy, fresh, white bready character's in there. Then on top of that, you get the more dense, wheaty white bready character, which has a good little bit of bite to it, particularly further back on the palate. Remember, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. So yeah, pretty sure it's European wheat that's in here with this one. And then on top of that, and particularly into the aftertaste, you get a wee bit more of the oaty character coming out of this one. But the more that I drink of this, I would say it's barley malt and wheaty leaning rather than anything else. But yeah, down the middle line of your palate there, you get that wee bit of kind of oaty creaminess, and you can feel the oats just get that little bit drier out toward the edge of your palate there. But in the dead centre of your tongue, you've got that little circle there where you get the Werther's original butter candy, butterscotchy notes coming out of the beer. And then surrounding that, there's just a little bit of biscuit. But I would say this one is not madly sweet in terms of the boozy side of the beer. It's actually a more wheaty, bitey, and kind of barley malt bready leaning New England IPA, this one. But yeah, I think with that, we have covered everything we need to about the middle third of the palate. So let's go to the back third of the palate then and look at that. So yeah, between middle and back third of your palate, you get very similar flavours, just at different intensities. But yeah, let's look at that. So the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there, the kind of brown bread in the base, the white bread in the middle, then the more wheaty, bitey characters on top. The base of that back third of the palate, you've got a nice kind of, you get that nice sort of white bready, bread crusty character in there, the Jacob's cream cracker, the brown bready layer sits on top of that, which feels a little bit lighter, taller and more airy. Then you've got the white bready layer, which is on top of that, which again feels a little bit lighter, taller, more airy. Both of these layers a bit more dry. Then you get the more dense, wheaty white bready character, which certainly has a little bit more bite to it, and you can feel a little bit of the drier side of the oats just creeping on top of that. And then it's all about the yeasty side of the beer. So let's have a wee look at the yeasty side of this one and see what it has for us. So yeah, the yeasty side of this beer for me, it's at its core, it feels like it's a slightly sweeter wholemeal brown bread, and then it's surrounded by a fairly sweet white bread, and then the very edge of it is a more kind of bread crusty sort of thing. So yeah, the way that goes together in this beer is pretty nice. Yeah, the yeasty side of this beer, I think, is really very nice. So definitely, yeah, back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. But the malty and yeasty side of things in this one, I think, yeah, quite barley malt and wheaty leaning, just a little bit of the oat in there. So let's go on to the hoppy side of things. And I will say that the more that I drink of this beer, it does start to build in bitterness a little bit, in all honesty. So yeah, back corners of the palate, you've got that nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you come further forward, there's a wee bit of a sort of pine resiny character just lingering underneath, but yeah, mostly this beer leans toward that more floral aromatic sort of thing. It's a little bit of like an oily spice at the front corners of your palate, but yeah, around the front curve of the tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, I would say. So yeah, let's go to the front third of your palate then and round off the flavour section of the video with a look at the fruity side of things. So yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. The brown bread in the base, the barley malt white bread on top, and then the wee bit of wheaty bitiness at the very top. The base of the front third of your palate, so the white bready bread crust, the Jacob's cream cracker, the wholemeal brown bread, the white bread, the wheat, and a little touch at the sweeter side of the oat creeping forward. Then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. One thing on reflection I would say about this beer too is that when it has all these kind of cryo oils and things in it, the green component actually does have quite a little bit of potency to it, but you know, you've got the wheaty bitiness coming out of it as well, which is quite interesting for sure. So yeah, the fruity side of this one, it's actually really quite nicely balanced. So at the back of that front third of your palate, you do have a nice little bit of, there's a little touch of grapefruit in there. But if you come further forward, you can feel on the top there's a little bit of peach, lots and lots of juicy mango in there, a slightly drier passion fruit underneath. As you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, there's the soft apricot, juicy pineapple, and then yeah, into the front half of that front third of your palate, it's all about the Nelson Sauvignon. So those tropical fruits are coming from the Citra and the Galaxy for sure, but yeah, in the front half of the front third of your tongue, it's all about that kind of white, green, grapey, gooseberry sort of note coming out of the beer. And there's just a little touch of lime behind the very, there's just a little touch of lime behind the very front tip of the tongue. So yeah, the way that goes together I think is really nice in this one as well. I do like that about this beer, but it's a classic, you know, Citra, Galaxy, Nelson Sauvignon is kind of a classic hop lineup, so I'm not surprised that it goes together so well in this one. But yeah, all in all, really quite nice beer this. Let's round off with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel then. So yeah, for me, mouthfeel wise, this beer, I'd say it's kind of top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. Carbonation is very, very smooth. It's got a real clean, a real cleanliness to it, this one. But I've often said this about Japanese beer. Japanese beer can be very, very full flavoured, but they just have this element of cleanliness to them. And the Japanese, when it comes to beer, they really value drinkability. That's just how they see beer. So you can see that with this one. Big, big flavour, but it really has this kind of just cleanliness to it, if you like, so that it suits the Japanese palate in a way. So yeah, there's a little bit of oiliness to it, but at the same time you've got that kind of creaminess. In terms of the the IBU in this beer, I'd say this is maybe about 50 IBUs, something like that. The bitterness does build in this one into the aftertaste, maybe 50 or 60 IBUs, and you can feel that on the side of your palate there. If you told me it was less, I don't know if I'd really believe you in honesty, but yeah, there is a fair little bit of bitterness to this one, a little bit of early edition hop in here. Makes sense when it's the higher ABV that it balances out that way, but yeah, the backbone of the malty side of things, a little bit grainy underneath, smoother in the middle, and kind of slightly sweeter and creamy on top, and then yeah, you've got that lovely juicy fruity note out of this one, kind of slightly tropical leaning, but a little bit more oily and gooseberry leaning in terms of the Nelson Sauvignon. So yeah, the way everything kind of pieces together in this one is really nice. We've had beers like this before from West Coast Brewing, so the quality of this one isn't a surprise. But yeah, this is one of their more wheaty and barley malt leaning New England IPAs in my opinion. But another very, very solid beer from these guys. Wouldn't hesitate to drink it again, but no doubt they will have something a little bit different going forward. But really good stuff once again from these guys. And as I say, West Coast Brewing are one of the Japanese brewers that you really need to check out if you're particularly interested in the Japanese beer scene. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This was the Endgame Magic, a New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA from West Coast Brewing in Mochimune City, Shizuoka Prefecture over in Japan. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from West Coast Brewing as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. Until the next time, Slange, Scott, cheers, check out my social media, check out their social media, and I'll see you guys in another review very, very shortly. Ciao just now, Kampai.